Harry Smith on the bus. I invite y'all to take this ride with me. I'm going to show you on the route how we got from the back of the bus to the front of the bus. Greetings. My name is Harry Smith, friends, and I'm here in one of my favorite places, the library. This is the Hampton Library in Hampton, Virginia, and I've spent many hours in here studying. I've spent many hours in their reference rooms. I've spent many hours in the library, Newport News Library, the Swim Library in Williamsburg, Richmond libraries all over the country. But why I spend so much time in the library? Well, first off, I'm a studier, and what I study is history, especially what they call Black history or African American history. These are two different things, and I'll explain to you. Black history is the history almost of mankind. It's the coming out of Africa and migrating out, and what the people did from there all over the world. African American history is the history of the plight of the Black man and the African in this country, in the United States. And this starts in about, they say, 1619. So the first documented Africans in Virginia arrived here in August 1619 on the White Line, an English privateer based in the Netherlands. Colonial officials traded food for these 20 and odd Africans who had been captured from a Portuguese slave ship. Among present-day Hampton's earliest African residents were Anthony and Isabella. Their son William was the first child of African ancestry known to have been born in Virginia. And this is circa 1624, many of the earliest Africans were held here as slaves, but some individuals became free. But some individuals became free. We were always free, y'all. Just keep that in your mind, always free. A legal framework for hereditary lifelong slavery in Virginia evolved during the 1600s. The United States abolished slavery in 1865. We want to thank the Department of Historic Resources for putting this up here. But here it is, we're talking about this is where it all began. Now they want to say that this is where it all began. I hope for my teachers by the time I finish this document I get enough information for you to understand that this is what they call the beginning of us as slaves in Virginia. This is not the beginning of us in no ways, shape, or form, nor was this the beginning condition of us. So I want you to understand, what did it say? Was the free, you see that? We're free. Some individuals became free, all right? Keep that in mind. We would never accept it. I'm trying to get you to understand now that what you see going around the world, don't worry about it, because ain't nothing gonna stop you from doing your thing, all right? I'm currently standing in the spot where the first Africans was brought in as slaves to the so-called New Country. We are at Fort Monroe in Virginia. I'm inviting you to take a trip with me as I share some of the things I've learned about our people and about Black people through history and getting to where we are today. My goal is for you to understand that we are a proud people and that at no time in history were we have any acceptance to whatever the system was putting forth. And not only were we not in any acceptance of that, we were not a part of any of that, and thus we continue to prosper. Regardless of massacres, hangings, or whatever, we have always, and this is what has always made me proud to be the Black man, the African American that I am. So I'm just going to ask you to continue with me on this trip. We're going to go up to Williamsburg and see where it all began for me, and hopefully I'll be able to teach some things that I've learned that can help you in understanding. My thing is, in understanding what happened, I don't have to be mad. I don't have to be sad. I don't have to fall apart when they talk about slavery, because I've studied enough to understand that no matter what happened, we still survive and we still prosper. So currently, we'll look at a couple of these things right here. Can you move to these right here? Now we're looking at, they're exciting here in Hampton. Hamptonians are really big on their history. So the Hamptonians are building a project at this site, and you can see it here. It's the African Landing Memorial Project. They're gonna have artists to site. This is what the future of the site is gonna look like. They're building the things to go there, and it's going to be a place to come visit and a place really to go see. So I love the people at Hampton, and in conjunction with it, you'll see, in conjunction with the National Park Service. And so then that's the beginning of African American history. I like to say that it's taught in such a way as that some mystic guru from England came over and reached in his pocket and pulled out a bunch of black people beans and threw them on the ground, and then we all sprouted up. Why do I say that? I say that because if you've ever been no matter where you're at, your history that you study as pertains to black people is going to start in 1619, which means what? Which means your history, what you learn of black people, is going to start with us being in a downtrodden position. It's going to start with us being in an oppressed position. But let me back up. Let me back up and tell y'all how I got to be this. Now, I'll let you know again, I'm Harry Smith. I'm 64 years old, and I've been doing this for a long time, 50 years. I've been studying and teaching and lecturing for a very, very long time. Being 64 years old, I was born in the 60s. I was born in 1961, which means that my first encounters on TV, the old black and white big box TVs, was images of slayings. And I tell you now, I've never tried to be a genius. I'm not smart. So I got a couple of notes here that I want to keep track of instead of just trying to memorize this out my head. But I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. All these assassinations. Malcolm X was assassinated in 1965. I'm 4 years old. Robert F. Kennedy is 1968. I'm 7 years old. Martin Luther King is also 1968. I'm 7 years old. When we look at these assassinations, this is what I learned growing up, in that period, in that decade of the 60s and 70s. Civil rights was at its peak. Water hose incidents, all kinds of marches, all kinds of things was going on. So these were my first images of this. Now, my dad was in the military. He was in the Navy, and he was stationed at that time in Virginia Beach, Virginia, or Little Creek, Virginia Beach. One end of that Little Creek base is in Norfolk. The other end is in Virginia Beach. And so I went to school in a desegregated situation when my cousins and things around me that weren't in the military setup were indeed in a segregated type situations. I was in a desegregated type situation. So if you know anything about Virginia, in the 4th grade, we went on a trip to Colonial Williamsburg. I call it the bus ride, because this bus ride would change my life. So we go on this trip to Colonial Williamsburg, and I'm on the bus with my friends, and there's a few other black people in the school at the time, but on my bus there was only me, and there's probably one black on this bus and one black on that bus, and nothing was unusual about that. If you look at my sports pictures, my Little League pictures, it's just me and white guys. Didn't think too much of it. I always knew I stood out. I always knew I was the black guy. That was never a problem, but nothing was really affecting me in any negative way. So in the 4th grade, the school decides to take us on a trip to Colonial Williamsburg. So we go to Colonial Williamsburg, and I'm happy like everybody else. We got our lunches packed, and we're riding the bus up to Colonial Williamsburg, and I'm having a ball. Me and my friends are playing on the bus, and we're just having a great time. And so the bus gets to Colonial Williamsburg, and we get out, and you go see all these historical places, House of Burgesses. I've been back up there a bunch of times. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to have an interview on here with a young lady who's doing tremendous work up there in Colonial Williamsburg right now, and that's going to be a blessing. All right, standing on the lawn, First Baptist Church, Williamsburg. Let me just go ahead and read this to you, and then I'll talk to you about it a little bit. This church, home of one of the oldest continuous congregations organized by African Americans, traces its origins to brush arbor meetings held by 1776 at a nearby plantation. The congregation moved to a Williamsburg carriage house and in 1856 completed a brick sanctuary on Nassau Street. The school for black students opened there in the 1860s. The Reverend John Dawson, longtime pastor, served in the Senate of Virginia from 1874 to 1877. First Baptist moved into a sanctuary here in 1956. During the Civil Rights era, the Reverend David Collins led demonstrations for fair housing practices and joined the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which is Dr. Martin Luther King's people. And it says Dr. King spoke here in 1962. One of the things I wanted to talk again about is when you came up here, when I came up here in the 4th grade to Colonial Williamsburg and took that bus ride up 64, you know, they didn't teach me this part of slavery. They didn't teach me that in 1776. They taught me 1776 was the time where they did the Declaration of Independence was written and all of that. But they didn't tell me that at the same time, 1776, brothers was establishing their church. All right, black folks, I'm gonna say brothers, but black people was establishing their church. And so I always keep saying that there's so much that was not told. And why is it important that this stuff is told? It's important because some energy drains you, some information drains your energy, and some information gives you energy. And if you take away all of the stuff that's going to give you energy, you know, I'm trying to give you a little bit of energy back by letting you know, hey, at no point, again, I always say it, at no point did we ever yield. At this point here, the black folks are dealing with slavery, they're dealing with it. 52% of the population here in Williamsburg was black. I didn't know that. Did y'all know that? 52% in 1776 when they signed the Declaration of Independence and all of that. Over half of Williamsburg is black. You know, it's black. They don't teach you none of that. They don't teach you none of that. Why? Because that would give you energy. What was the black people doing? Was they being slaves? Some of them was, yes. But were they all being slaves? No. Some of them was carpenters, some of them was brick masons, some of them was hired out. They were buying their own freedoms. I can show you slave rolls, rolls of freed men in that time period, and how and why they were freed. So we just want to get into this one. If I get a chance, I'm gonna try to get inside the church today if they'll let me. I don't know if they'll let us get inside today, but you know, one of the first black churches in the country, Williamsburg, Virginia.
We are connecting the past with the present. Everything that happened before the 20th century, you'll see on Nassau Street.
Okay.
Everything that's happening 20th century and 21st century with the historic First Baptist Church is on Scotland Street.
Okay.
This marker was placed here to connect those. Okay? And this one is in tribute to Gowan Pamphlet, who is the first ordained Baptist minister in the country. Not the first black one, the first ordained black Baptist minister in the country.
Don't they have a guy who reenacts him?
They do. His name is Reverend James Ingram.
Okay.
And James Ingram is also a member of the First Baptist Church.
I want to come see the reenactment. I'm curious as to what kind of flavor he puts on that.
Oh, he is an amazing interpreter. He's been doing it for 40 years.
Right.
And I got to tell you, when we started this work in 2020, when the Colonial Williamsburg finally stopped and listened to the fact that in 1776 this town was 52% black.
That's correct. 52.
Free and enslaved.
I have the slave rolls, the books that are freed blacks in the area. You know, I've been doing this forever too. Mm-hmm. So when I look at this, I've got things with the Moors in the area. Mm-hmm. I just got a lot.
The Ashbys.
Yeah, so much.
Everybody that was here. One of the wealthiest men in the country, Sam Harris, was a member of First Baptist Church. He loaned the president of William and Mary money to keep the doors open.
Wow.
You will not find that in the history book.
No.
Because no one tells you. But there were no banks here.
Right.
And he had a store called the Cheap Store.
Uh-huh.
He sold his merchandise to everyone. He has the biggest headstone ever over in Cedar Grove Cemetery.
Okay.
But they discriminated against us in life and in death. So We got the city to correct that a couple of years ago, and we've been working now to uncover all of the African American story. I got a call last week while I was in Mexico that the ground that we're standing on, there are infant burials here. And because we went in 2020 and got them to uncover the burials that I'm going to take you about to see, they called and said, I'm contacting you because you said the descendants should make the decision. So there's going to be a town meeting in April where they're going to tell us exactly where those graves are here, and they're going to memorialize them.
We're just going to memorialize.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Something there. Because it's sacred ground. Before
you don't want to be tearing it up.
Yeah, before the Rockefellers came in and decided that, you know,
they would. The Rockefellers.
Yeah,
we want to talk about that.
Well, they came in and thought that America would be happy if they portrayed history of the colonial times, but only from an Anglican perspective.
It's the only perspective. That's the only perspective.
That was the only one they knew.
And this is the basis to the documentary that I'm doing, is that what I travel and what I do is I look for the people that don't nobody know nothing about.
Right.
I pull up in some town in North Carolina, and they'll tell me about 10 or 15 black men that did all kinds of everything to keep it going. So my whole theme and my whole theory always through my mind and my heart was, when I first came up to learn about slavery, which is why I'm in Williamsburg, because when you're in Virginia, you must take a tour of colonial Williamsburg. My dad was in the Navy, I was living in Virginia Beach. We ride up here in 1970, 69 or 70, we ride up, I'm the only black on the bus.
Yep.
I'm the only black on the bus.
And thinking, why am I here? I don't see myself.
I leave out, I feel totally different. But it sparked me to where I am today. It sparked me to
well, that's great.
But what I always look for is what we were doing for real.
Yeah.
What were we really doing? Because you just want me to think we was just some. They want to think that some guy came, reached in his pocket, threw out a bunch of, so-called nigger beans, and we just sprouted.
Oh, no. No, that's not what happened.
Not only that, not only that, at no time were there not freed blacks everywhere.
That's right.
Everywhere.
And well educated.
And well educated.
And
that
wealthy.
was the key.
And wealthy.
And wealthy. That was the key.
Yep. The First Baptist Church it had agency because of its affluence.
Okay.
Now, that presented a problem for us when we had our daughter churches and our granddaughter churches come out, because they thought all of the bougie folks went to First Baptist Church. You had to be educated or you had to be light-skinned. Okay?
Yeah. That's just a countrywide thing. Too.
Well, so, colorization.
It is what it is.
But we're now bringing those churches back in with us to uncover this full story.
Right.
And it is having an amazing impact. I just left and I have this on.
I was looking at that. I was looking at that.
The Virginia 250.
Okay.
What we're doing is we're saying to the nation, you will never again celebrate this country with ignoring us, because we were here. This is our country.
Okay.
And so we're going to force you now. All the little parades you have in the red and white and blue balloons and all of that, you know what?
Love them.
We're going to make sure that we got some folks that look like us.
And this group is, who is this?
They are currently right now over at the lodge, the Williamsburg Lodge.
Okay.
And the work that's being done is being done by Senator Mamie Locke and Carly Fiorina.
Okay.
Carly's a Republican, Mamie is a Democrat.
Right.
Mamie's black, Carly's white.
Work is work.
But the one thing that they cannot escape is the truth.
Right.
And that's what's going on now.
Okay.
I gotta tell you, we came and there was one sign, which you'll see in the movie, that said the First Baptist Church. And it was on that piece of green land. There was nothing else here. And I swear that God had his hand in that, because they did not build anything here.
Okay.
I think they were waiting for us. That's what my church members said. They were waiting for us, okay? So now we have the Bray School, which is the first school and one of the first schools of the Bray School system to educate the children of the enslaved. And they did. And we now have the names of those children.
Oh. Ooh.
You will be, I can't even, I get emotional even talking about it.
Ooh.
You will be able to see that.
Wow.
When you go into that, you will actually look at that.
Oh, that's going to be part of it. That's going to actually be a museum setup.
That's right. You'll be able to enter it from the street side, look at everything that was in there. And that's the original
Is
building.
that gonna be a paid attraction?
No, no.
Not paid attraction.
Part of the deal that I struck with them, they will never charge anyone to go into an African American memorial site in this on this
good.
property.
You tell everything, ain't you?
Well, you know what? Reparations takes many forms. Okay, that's right. And it's not, you know, it should have been done before now. I came here several years ago, and the only exhibit they had on the religion was in this building here. Okay, and they had it locked because no one was going to visit. Okay, so I pulled my car illegally like I did today, and I sat over there every day when I came in from DC from work to see what the visitation was and to see who was going in.
How many people
with
was
us.
trying to get in?
Right.
Right.
Wasn't many,
Right.
because Duke of Gloucester's over there.
Right.
So we've done a couple of things in the last 4 years. There's going to be an African American Heritage Trail. This is stop number 9. That's stop number 8. The church that you were just at was the first stop.
Let me just tell you, these trails.
Yes, yes, because the places that have been forgotten, they're now trying to come back.
I'm in South Carolina, all the places trails are
Yeah.
everywhere. I've been probably
Yep, so let me show you what happened here. So nothing was going on over here.
Okay.
And we came over with the archaeologist. Okay?
Okay.
And we still have descendants that are alive that are 90. And they said, that sign that you have over there is in the wrong place. That's not where I went to church. I went to church over here.
Oh.
And so we talked to Colonial Williamsburg. They got a ground penetrating radar. They came out, they looked 30 feet below the surface. And right at that point, in 2020, there was an asphalt parking lot here. There was a bus parking lot on this site. They used it for parking. So what they did was the archaeologist, with descendants' consent, examined the surface. They found the original foundation of the original church.
Right.
They found the foundation of the 1856 church.
Right.
And then we asked them, we said, are there any burials there? Because we know that this country discriminated against us while we were living, but also while we were dead. We had to bury our dead somewhere. Where are they? And they said, well, we don't think there's anybody there. I said, but yeah, but do you know? Do you know? So they said, well, we don't, okay, fine. Get a GPR and look at the ground. They first found 3, and then they found 23, and now there are 62 intact burials on this site.
Still there.
Yes, sir. I'm about to show them to you.
Okay.
This site is not going to open until they break ground. And they're protecting the site now because the descendants are calling the shots, as they should. Okay? I actually am going to take you around and show you how to get in. But I wanted to show you the markers. We made the news last November. But my rule is this. If I tell the descendants that the general public will not know it before they know it, I mean it. Okay? So I'll show you the markers back there. This is closed, but I'll take you around the back.
Okay.
On Juneteenth this year, we're going to break ground. The descendants,
Juneteenth, okay.
Juneteenth, the descendants will break ground. I think NBC Today is going to probably come back.
Probably.
Too. Yeah, they've been here already 3 times.
Well,
so.
this is worthy of that.
Yeah.
This is
So
definitely.
let me show you, and you can follow me. What we did, we said, we know that there's no African American presence in this place other than that of the enslaved. We owe it to the ancestors to mark their graves and to honor them. We will not move them. This is their place that they chose to lay. And so we are going to let them lay here.
How do you have your slabs done?
We had them done, they were manufactured by Colonial Williamsburg because again, we called the shots and we said we wanted them to be a certain material. We wanted them to be placed on the top of the ground exactly the way that they are underground. Because while we don't have the technology right now to do sophisticated DNA testing, we may at some point in the future be able to identify these people. And you'll see there are going to be some that overlap.
Yes.
That's how they are underground.
You know, I tell you that that's just really hitting me in here. That's really
It's pretty emotional.
That's really hitting me. My wife and I went up to Alexandria. They've got a grave cemetery set up there. You've been up to that one?
We actually used what they have. They also have a stone wall in memory of this.
Yes.
We sent our researchers out to look at other places so that we would know how to appropriately memorialize this place. So what we did was, for every grave that's here, there's a marker. We may not know their name, but we know whether they're an adult or an infant or a child. You'll see they're in the same size of the graves that are below the ground.
This in itself is an undertaking.
It is.
Just that.
Yes.
Just what I'm looking at.
So this one opened last November before our gala.
Okay, so this one is open.
Yeah, well, it's really not, but
Okay.
y'all, you know, you came in here and you can shoot footage or whatever you want to do, and just tell them Connie was here, and they'll say, "Oh, okay." Okay, Connie.
Connie is it?
Yeah,
for me.
say, "Let Freedom Ring brought me over here." Now, this building here, this is going to be the site where we break ground, and we're going to restore the original structure that was here. Okay.
What is that structure?
They're gonna build it. That's what they did. Colonial Williamsburg, they restore buildings.
what they
So
did.
we said, okay, you put up all the other old ones, we need you to put up this one too.
Yeah, that's right.
So this one was destroyed by a hurricane in 1834.
And that was one of the churches.
Yes, that was the church.
That was the church.
Now, for
Which makes so much sense. The church, you know, the church, just like
That's
it is
right.
today. Right. That
That's
just
right.
makes so much sense.
yeah, so
Yeah.
when they do restore the church, we're gonna have possession of this building and the building across the street. Okay.
Which you told me was a what?
It was what they thought was the African Baptist meeting place,
But it was not.
but it wasn't.
It was right
right here.
Got it.
So we're going to modify those. They are now working on a narrative to tell the story correctly. Okay? And once they do this, then you'll be able to leave after the 18th century and go over to the 19th century, 1856, 1857. They built that one over there in 1957. So the story will continue, but the presence of the African American community was here. You had the wealthiest people in the world here when wealth wasn't a thing.
Kind of, I can see that you are so vested in this right here.
I am.
You're very soul reeks
I
of
am.
this right here.
I am.
You are.
It is well with my soul.
Is it well?
It is well with my
I
soul.
have been doing this for, like I tell you, the people that I get to meet. You know, I'm just a nobody that nobody knows that comes through. That's me. But the people I meet, like yourself, what a job! What a job!
Well, you know what? It's not as much a job as it is a calling.
I can feel you
It's
on
a
that.
calling.
I can feel you on that.
Because I have a job.
Yeah,
but
I
I
got
tell
one
you,
too. I had one.
and you know what? At 70 years old, I thought there's got to be something that I can do to leave this place better than I found it.
This is what I call it. I said the word job, but it's really a work.
Yes,
It's a work.
it is.
It's a work that has been assigned to you. You accepted it.
Well, and when you get like with the descendants that were here that lived through Jim Crow and everything else, they never thought this would happen.
No,
And when I came here the first time and I stood on this space, which I call a sacred space,
yeah.
and to see them, I was talking to one of them, Ms. Gardner. I was talking to her. She said, "Stop talking. Stop talking." She said, "I need a minute."
I'm almost about to need a minute.
She said, "I need a minute because I never thought in my lifetime that I would see this happen." She said, "They have done us all kind of ways." She said, "And now to be rightfully restored in the place where we intended to be, And she said, I just need to cry for my mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother. So
again, I thank you for all the work that you have done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Remember I was saying earlier that my wife and I travel. We have a show we do called Old Folks Traveling.
Oh,
and we go to all these. I'll give you that when I get. But we go to this historical places, and like I say, the difference. To read about this would have. I wouldn't be trying to not cry.
Yeah.
Just reading it.
Yeah.
Being here, I'm doing everything I can to fight back this.
It's something.
The beauty of it for me is the way that we as a people was always achieving.
Yeah.
For me, that is just tremendous. Yeah. The amount, the way we achieved under adverse situations.
I always say, because of it and in spite of it.
Yeah.
We're still here.
We're still here.
We're still here. And the thing about it too is that, when people came here, you came here in junior high school, I came here in junior high school.
Elementary, whatever that was.
Yeah, whatever it was. The only thing we saw were the enslaved.
That's all we saw.
We did not see Lafayette.
Nope.
We did not see Sam Harris.
None of this.
We did not see any of the people, the Ashby family. We didn't see any of those people that were prosperous or affluent or educated.
None of that.
And now, it all comes back.
But, so I get off the bus, and I began, as we're moving around and they're showing us stuff, all the black people I see are slaves. Every one of them is slaves. And I'm going, this is kind of odd, and now my white friends, the rest of the people on the bus, they're starting to look at me just a little bit differently, because they're noticing the same things. Like, dude, your people ain't looking too good over here. So so now I'm getting more and more kind of withdrawn as I'm watching this, as we're going through, because I'm, no matter what they're talking, I'm not even hearing them no more. They're just talking now, because all I'm doing is looking at, wow, what is going on here? Why are the black people in this condition that they're in? And even more than that, in the 4th grade, I'm wondering, what do we do to get that way? What do we do to get this way? And so this would send me on a lifelong journey of learning, teaching, trying to do better, trying to be great, trying to do things that I could. By my dad being in the military, we weren't, again, segregated, but we weren't learning anything about black people. I would learn later on in life that during the 1700s, 52% of the population of Williamsburg was black.
All right, here we are right in the fat part, Duke of Gloucester Street, over the next street, over down this way, in Colonial Williamsburg again. If you look around, you see the tourists. The Rockefeller Foundation has made this into a beautiful tourist town. But again, me as a young child coming here, you don't see even today, even though our population used to be 52% black, as you can see, there's mostly European persuasion people here doing these tours. I've seen a couple of black families, a couple of black couples. So when you're young and you come in and that's all you see, and then you see the slavery, again, it's not conducive, it's not a good thing for your ego. So it started me to looking and searching and seeing what was going on, and I've learned a lot.
But on this trip, I didn't see no 52. I didn't see no little over half of black people. All I saw was way less than half black people, and they were all slaves. You know what I mean? So, this I call this my awakening, or more or less, because the bus ride home ain't always near what the bus ride was up there. Cause I'm almost distraught about what I saw and what was going on there. So I set about trying to learn. Also in the 4th grade, a couple of other things happened that year. A couple of other things happened in that exact same year. One thing that happened to me that was really good was my 4th grade teacher. She was an old lady named Miss Whiteman, which I laugh at that all day long because her name was literally White Man, Whiteman, Miss Whiteman. And that same year, my first book report that I wrote, I had went to Vacation Bible School that summer, and I really, really, really got enamored with Jesus Christ and the story of Jesus Christ. And I can remember plain as day, Miss Whiteman telling me. Now, no one else around. My dad was in the Navy. He was gone all the time. My mother worked all the time. I had no family around. Just me and my 2 sisters at the time. And Miss Whiteman was really the first person to ever say to me, and this is an older, she was a 60-some-year-old European white lady. And she said to me, she said, Chip, people call me Chip. And she said, Chip, you're special. You're going to grow on to be a minister. You're going to grow up to do a lot of things, and you're going to grow up to do a lot of things for people because you love people and you care about people. And she had gotten that from my book report about Jesus Christ. So Miss Whiteman was the first person to ever in life tell me that I was going to be something, or that I was going to do something, or that I had any kind of mission going on. I would later go on to have Miss Whiteman also as a 6th grade teacher, and she would reiterate that to me, that I would be special. But anyway, I go about, let me flip my page here. Let me flip my page so I can keep track. Okay. She's again, Miss Whiteman was the one who first put in my mind that I would do something special. Now I don't know today where I've done anything special or not, but I would tell you today that as of today, I have been in the military, honorably discharged. You see, I have the Navy hat. Very proud of my Navy hat. Very proud to serve my country, no matter what it did. I believe that we all should serve our country. It's going to go if it fights and it's wars. I don't want anybody coming over here blowing up anybody. So, you know, being raised in the Navy and knowing that, you know, before my parents got separated, that, hey, I needed to be in the Navy. So I joined the Navy. We had what you call a class, and I would learn later that we have in our society something that I call a caste system. That is, there's a ranking of people. And when you're younger, depending on your test scores, depending on the things you do, the school system itself starts separating you into separate classes. You know, when I was younger, all of my friends in high school took vocational courses. Well, there was a time in this country where you could take a vocational course, and when time you got out of high school, you had already had a journeyman's license. You know, that is no longer the case in this country with jobs moving and things like that. But there was a time you could take a vocational course in high school. Well, my grades and my scores and things was always so high. And you remember, if you recall, coming out of the 60s and 70s, they had killed King, they had killed X, and they were trying to appease the people. So they came out with a whole bunch of initiatives, and one of the initiatives was one of the military initiatives, was to get black people into the technical fields that we weren't allowed into before. So I wanted to be in the electronic field. I ended up leaving high school in the 11th grade and went to the electronic field in the Navy. I would end up later on being a nuclear electronics technician at Newport News Shipyard, building the aircraft carriers, and feeling like I was quite a little smart guy, you know, but hey, I'm quite a little smart guy. Not realizing that I had been selected to move through the system like this. I remember one year my mother wanted me to get into the electrician program at the high school, and they wouldn't let me in because I was in the college prep program, and they didn't have enough black people in the college prep program. So I met a quota. All of us have heard and used the word quota. So, you know, I met a quota, which forced me into the military, where I met another quota. You know, this time a quota that I could fit in, and became an electrician and the electronics technician. But I would, you know, it bothered me so much coming off the Colonial Williamsburg that I began studying slavery. I began studying everything I could about the black people here. Even simple things like how we developed from Negroes to blacks to African Americans, and how our names changed and what we're being called has been changed over the years, not knowing anything about the Moors and different things. And I will get into the Moors later. You'll see me do some lectures about talking about the Moors on this right here. Not knowing anything, you know, just plain old not knowing anything, but I'm studying, I'm learning. And I realized it's this perspective, the angle that you learn a thing. You know, a European person can learn the same thing I'm learning, but the angle they're being taught that is different than the angle that I'm being taught that, if that makes any sense to you. We are at the Visitor Center at Fort Monroe. I told you I live around so much history, so I just want to take a second. I just want to take a second to thank Fort Monroe for embracing the African American history that they do have. This is Hampton, Virginia, such a historical place, and I want to thank them for doing that. Here we have behind me these three gentlemen right here. Actually, I'm not sure how they got across, but during the war, the Civil War, these dudes got from Sewell's Point, which is Norfolk, over here to Fort Monroe. If you know how wide the mouth of that harbor is, I'm trying to figure out now if they swam, if they stole some, I don't know what they did. But once they got here, General Butler said that they were contrabands of war. He deemed them contrabands of war because the southern states had pulled away from the Union and he didn't have any obligation to the southern states. So once people found out, the slaves and things and the runaways found out that these brothers had been declaimed contraband of war, then they started flooding in. Thousands of black people came from all over and set up camps, set up little camps, slab towns, different towns full of refugees from slavery who had been freed and declared contrabands of war. There's so many in this, and it's strange to me that there's so many people in Hampton that do know their history. There's so many people in Hampton that move towards their history, and yet there's so many, especially the younger, who don't know nothing about the history of this place. So this is just one other place. This is I'm gonna tell you exactly where this is. This is the Visitor Center in Fort Monroe. They have another one of these statues in front of a young lady, and that has one hell of a story also. So again, what I'm always saying, y'all, we are great. There's nothing gonna happen. Don't worry about these people. Don't worry about the economy. Don't worry about anything like that. We're not getting squashed out. We ain't never been squashed out. Through all that we've been put through, you still striving. And that's gonna always be my message, and it's my message today. Thank you. I would go on, to strive, and something in me said, hey dude, you gotta help. You gotta help. You gotta do something to better yourself, and you gotta do something to better the situation. You gotta do something to better the plight of the black man. Now understand, I've never been poor, so I can't even talk to you about being poor. My mother can, my grandmother and all of them can definitely speak to poor, but I can't really speak to poor. But I can speak to mistreatment. I can speak to being segregated. I can speak to being singled out. I can speak to not being promoted. I can speak, because of my color. I can speak to not being let in certain things because of my color. I can speak to being threatened because of my color. I can, threatened to be beat up and everything. So there are definite things I can speak to, and it's these things that caused me and drove me my whole life to learn and to teach. The things that I learned and the things that I teach. So as I go through this, I want you to understand that, one of the reasons I'm doing this is because one of the greatest things you notice now, especially now, and this is 2025, is that so many people now are tracing their heritages back and tracing their lineages back.
All right, we're out traveling today. We're at the Tucker Cemetery, still in Hampton, Virginia. It's so much right around my house. Do not talk about what I'm talking about, but that I like to see and get to. William Tucker Foundation. Remember, we already learned that the Tuckers was the first slaves that was taken in from the ship out at Fort Monroe. Their family has stayed here and grown and multiplied now. And this started in 1624. The William Tucker 1624 Society is a nonprofit that the family started to clean up this cemetery and make this sand beautiful. This is on Sharon Court, I think it is. Sharon Court, Sharon Drive here in Hampton. Right off Aberdeen Road, right off Weaver Road. You come around, you hang right on Jordan, and it swoops you right on around. And then the cemetery is back here. You'll see more landmarks and then actual plots and whatnot. So to think that we didn't do nothing, y'all worrying about slavery and doing all this and that. I'm telling y'all now, this family here, Tuckers, have been here since the beginning. This particular family is known to have been here since the beginning, and they're still alive and they're still prosperous. We're not going nowhere, people. We're not going nowhere. All right? Let's see, can we make another stop and add that to the list?
So I was able to trace my people back to the Gullah Islands. I was able to teach to a place called St. Helena's, St. Helena in South Carolina. I've been there a few times. I've been to Charleston, South Carolina. I've been to a lot of places and studied these histories. So as I'm coming up, I'm trying to figure out, what is my place? What is my place? My father's around to teach me. Nobody's around to teach me. So I'm trying to find my place, but inside of me, I'm being driven, towards helping people, towards teaching people. I'm being driven that way. Don't know why. Don't really want nothing to do. And if you all understand what I'm saying, there's a lot of stuff internally to you that's being pushing you that you try to ignore or you try to stay away from. I didn't mind learning. I just had a problem going out there trying to teach it. So at about 21, when I got out the Navy at 21, joined when I was 17, did 4 years active service and 2 years of inactive service, for a total of 6. I began, coaching basketball. Okay, I moved to Virginia, got a job working on nuclear aircraft carriers down in the reactor plant. Wasn't nobody black down there with me. Well, I had one friend who got hired the same day as me, and we the first 2 people to be hired into the highest nuclear shop in Newport News Shipyard. And this is 1983. I think we both got hired in there. We were young. He was out the Army. I was out the Navy. But I began coaching ball. I had moved down from Rhode Island, and this is where I learned that there were different kinds of prejudice. I didn't understand prejudice that much, but as I began to see that there were different types of prejudice. When my parents separated, we went to Providence, Rhode Island, and we lived in Providence, Rhode Island. I went to high school. By the time I left high school in 17, I had moved and lived in 5 different states. But I noticed in Rhode Island that there was a separation up there that was different than it was in the South. And that separation was that the neighborhoods in the cities up there were segregated according to ethnicities. The Italians had a section of town. The blacks had a section of town. What do you call those? The Irish section of town. Everybody had a section of town, and nobody after dark was supposed to be out of their section. Whereas down here in the South, the prejudice is a little more black and white, just blatant, just blatant black and white, just black and white. So I understand that things were going on differently in different areas of the country. And that made me study even more and study that and try to figure out, okay, well, what happened? Why is it different here than it is up there? Why was slavery different in the South than it was in the North? Was it different? These are the questions that went through my mind. So even when I was coaching basketball at 21, 22, basketball season would run right into Black History Month. And so even at 22 years old, 23 years old, Black History Month came around and my team was playing. We always did Black History. I always taught Black History during that month to get that out. I believe in a thing called mental constipation. You may hear me say that a couple times. Mental constipation. Well, what is that? That's when a person collects 30,000 pounds of knowledge and never shares it or never spreads it anywhere. To me, you're now sick. The human body takes in food, it lets out waste. It takes in water, it lets out waste. If you take in too much knowledge, you got to share it. You got to share it, and that's literally what I'm doing now. So let me backtrack to where I was about. One of the reasons I'm doing this is because as we search our lineage and we go back, I read there's such a move for people to find where they come from. I decided that 100 years from now, if one of my descendants wants to figure out what the heck I was doing, it shouldn't be that hard for me to leave them a sample or whatever of what I was doing. It just shouldn't be that difficult. And hopefully in the process, anybody that hears what I'm saying will learn something from what I'm talking about. And so my goal became to be active and to do my part. My goal became to do my part to educate all the people I could. Like I was a great educator, but just to share what I was learning. So, I could help a person understand what was going on, with slavery and teach it. Because remember, everything's taught from an angle. And if you just go through life learning about your people from a downtrodden angle, then you don't think you can do that much. You don't see yourself achieving, you don't see yourself accomplishing, because it's not taught to you. I tell people now, people always ask me, how come, white people seem to be more successful in business? It's because they know more business people than we do. See, when the average black person starts a business, now, even to this day, when the average black person starts a business, they're the first person in their family to do it. They're not, so now they got a battle, because we're taught to get a job. We're taught to go get a job. If you start talking about owning your business, they just start looking at you crazy. I've been through that many times. I had my first business when I was 23, a cleaning service, not knowing that, my white friends who was telling me to do it and helping me to do it, they weren't really helping me, they were just telling me, but they could go get a loan that I couldn't go get. They could go get somebody to back them on their business joint that I couldn't go get. So everything I ever tried to do, I was starting from zero. Well, when you're starting from zero, trying to build it to add, it's very hard to get off zero. I always tell people, in life, 0 to 1 is the hardest step you can ever make. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, those are easier steps. But 0 to 1 is the hardest step you can possibly make, because you're trying to get from nothing to something. It's different than going, you already got 1, you got something, you're going to double that to 2, you can double that to 4. But from 0, you can't double 0. You double 0, it's 0. All right, so you have to think of a way to get off of 0. So now I'm thinking, in my mind, I want to be rich. I'm thinking the cure to this whole black thing, the cure to the whole family situation, the cure to everything is for me to find a way to be a multi-millionaire. Man, how frustrating was that? And I'm talking about life. I still have my own little company. I still have a company. But I would later learn about myself that it was, in fact, not money that I was going for. What I really was going for internally was a sense of doing what's right. And what's right for me, based on what God gave me for talent, what God gave me for to do, was to uplift people the best I could. Even that is hard. Even that is hard. When you talk about uplifting people, it's going to cost you a little something. So after basketball and during basketball, I went back to sports. I always loved baseball as a kid. I started umpiring baseball, making my way up to college level baseball umpire. And this is baseball is a predominantly white sport. So, there's been many places that I've umpired where I was the only black guy within miles of the field, and a lot of fans have decided that they wanted to let me know that in no uncertain terms. But for me, it strengthened me up. One of the biggest obstacles in my life, one of the biggest obstacles I've ever experienced was not the white people or of course the white establishment, not white people. I'm gonna say this real quick. It's very easy to hate a system which is founded to keep black people down, but it's very easy to love an individual. This is why you see people, even in the slave days, slave owners fell in love with their slaves. People are like, they always raped them all. No, they didn't rape them all. When you study your history, when you study the history, you will find that a lot of these women were emancipated and by their husbands. A lot of these white guys married the women. I also found a very interesting thing in slavery, that children's freedom was decided based on the plight of the mother. And they say different reasons for that it was a patriarchal thing. In other words, if the mother was free, then the child was free. But what I later found out was that that's because a lot of these mothers were actually white women who were sleeping with the black men. We always think of the slave master sleeping with, the raping and all of that. Not true. A lot of these white women were sleeping with these black men and making babies. And these babies were mulattoes, and these babies were born free, okay? When it comes to the black man coming through the history here, what I really, really want all of us to understand is how much history is left out. And the biggest part that's left out is what black people were actually doing while white people in the white system was doing what it was doing. Because no one teaches you that. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. 1700s, the country's going into direct Declaration of Independences. They're trying to do constitutions. They're forming their government. They're doing their thing. But if you check history, you'll find even in colonial Williamsburg, where the heart of that was happening at, the first black church, the first Baptist church of Williamsburg, which is one of the first black churches in the country, at the exact same time, simultaneously, was being founded, and the people were worshiping. What are we saying here? I'm saying here that the whole time that Europeans were doing what they were doing, we were striving, achieving, and battling. That's why I don't worry about the modern day government, the modern day, people say Trump, I didn't really want to say that, but you know, the Trumps, the Trumpisms, the different things like that. It doesn't worry me in the least bit, and what I'm trying to teach you is it should not worry you at all. Why? Because where you see an atrocity, you know, we had all kinds of atrocities, hangings, floggings, you name it, every atrocity, burnings, you know, they used our skin for shoes, you know, the atrocities against black people is absolutely just it brings you to tears to understand the level of atrocities. But a lot of these atrocities was because we were on the move so hard that it scared the teachings of the Europeans, who thought, oh, we're better than these people. How are these people accomplishing? So I say to you, at the heart of what I teach is that we were always achieving, always accomplishing, and we're still achieving and still accomplishing right now. The Civil War was not a war for black people. The Revolutionary War was really a civil war with the English fighting each other trying to get this land over here. That wasn't the war that the black people was. World War II, World War I, Korean War. None of these wars, not one war, really had anything to do with us. Now they will tell you that the Civil War had to do something with slavery. Big, it's small, but it wasn't about slavery. It was about economics. It was about money. It was about who was going to control what money and how he was going to, you know, how we were going to make this money. The South had free labor and they wasn't trying to give it up, period. The North was trying to industrialize, and so they were trying to do their thing. We were, as we always were, bounced in the middle.
We are on the campus of the mighty Hampton Institution. It's now Hampton University, was Hampton Institution at the time. I'm gonna get back and talk a little bit about that, but I want y'all to get into this. We're actually at Emancipation Oak, and it says here, I ain't gotta be a genius. I ain't trying to fluff you. I'm gonna just read it like it is. In January 1863, here, under an oak tree, newly freed African-American students, say it again, newly freed African-American students listened as the Emancipation Proclamation was read aloud. Union General Benjamin Butler's contraband of war decision at Fort Monroe in 1861 anticipated that day, enabling hundreds of enslaved African Americans to reach freedom in the Union lines. Pre-war slave codes had forbidden the enslaved from being educated, but the increasing number of refugees camped here prompted the establishment of schools, which the newly freed eagerly attended. Mary Peak, a free-born, there we go, Mary Peak, say it again, free-born African-American, had boldly disregarded pre-war laws and taught enslaved people to read in her home near the Hampton Academy. Peak's house was destroyed when Hampton was burned on August 7, 1861, but she continued teaching in an abandoned cottage next to the Chesapeake Baptist Female Seminary. Peak's 1862 death from tuberculosis ended her outstanding work, but by then there were other educational opportunities for the freed people. The American Missionary Association, a New York-based Christian philanthropic society, sent Reverend Lewis Lockwood here in September 1861. He noted that the parents and children are delighted with the idea of learning to read. The association established 2 schools here. Additional schools were created at Fort Monroe, Camp Hamilton, and the burned-out Hampton Courthouse, which missionaries and freed people renovated I'm gonna say it again, which missionaries and freed people did what? Renovated together. Here again, going back to the thing where I'm trying to tell y'all, we never accepted it. We was always working. Said I keep highlighting the freed people. We're at emancipation of. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna walk around the better side so you can see a much better view of this. I can talk to you a little bit more about the importance of Hampton University as a school. Maybe I'm walking. If I walk too fast, but I want y'all to get the breadth of this oak tree and how pretty this oak tree is when you really look at it. This tremendous oak tree. I love this tree. And you watch it, you can imagine the people standing under here as they're reading that Emancipation Proclamation right here. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. There it is. The Emancipation Oak on the campus of Hampton University. Why Hampton University? Why do I like to talk about Hampton University? Hampton University put out, let me come back this way. Hampton University put out probably, when you start talking about Booker T. Washington's, Roosevelt Moulton's, the people that Hampton University graduated back in those days, I can't stress enough how important education was to our people then. Education was everything. We understood that with education, we would be able to grow, we would be able to do things. And Hampton University was definitely at the forefront of that. They put out school teachers, they put out engineers, they put out some of everything they could possibly put out, and would go back to the communities. They became school teachers, they became principals, they became all kinds of things. Booker T. Washington would go on to be the first president at Tuskegee University. We got Roosevelt Moulton, who followed in after him. And just and even recently, I've been here long enough to watch this gentleman named Dr. Harvey stay in that same tradition and really grow this institution. I want to salute Dr. Harvey for the work that I watched this man do over the years. People don't think you're watching, but you're watching. But here again, Emancipation Oak.
But under the cover of us being bounced in the middle, we were still achieving. We were setting up cities. We were setting up strongholds. We were doing all the things that we needed to do as a people, which is astonishingly cool for me. It's astonishingly cool. It's my favorite part of what I've learned and what I teach is that underneath, while the European government, while this newfound government, and the Bible talks about battling with principalities, and that's what we're dealing with now. Trump is a principality. He's part of a principality. And so in that principality, we still endure, we still accomplish. Those of you that know things about the Black Wall Street and the different neighborhoods, Wilmington, North Carolina, the massacres, go ahead and Google it and just Google all the black massacres. These massacres occurred because we were achieving. No other reason. No other reason. Not because we attacked anybody, not because we took anybody's land, not because we did any of that. We achieved because we took what we got, we worked for it, and we achieved. Now, what is the hard part? What was the hard part? And what is still the hard part? And the most painful part of what I do? It's battling with my own people. Like I said before, since not a lot of black people understood entrepreneurship and monies, and they just say get a job and things like that, whenever I would try to do something, and even to this day, it's the people closest to me that tell me I can't do it. Or even they don't tell you they can't do it. They don't support it. They don't put any money on it. They don't buy nothing from you. You're selling the greatest product in the world. They don't buy anything from you because they're caught up in the stereotypes of you not doing, being able to do good work or being able to sell good products. And so it's hard for you. Again, you're trying to get from 0 to 1, and you can't get from 0 to 1 because nobody wants to support you. On top of that, you're generally trying to start your business within your own community because you don't know outside of your community. So you're starting within your own community. A man that starts a barbershop puts the barbershop in his own community. It makes sense. It just simply makes sense. And so for him to grow, he's got to convince his community first that, hey, spend your money over here with me. Spend your money. Well, they know another guy that's got a shop that's uptown. Go ahead now, I'm going up here uptown. I'm gonna go up here. He must be something different, and I'm gonna spend my money up there. So my greatest obstacle has always been the people closest to me, and I know a lot of you guys can relate to that. I do a lot of lectures. I spread a lot of knowledge. I spread a ton of knowledge. I've been blessed to, let me see. I've been blessed to, like I tell you, I don't try to be smart. I'm just going to turn the page. I ain't trying to be no genius. I want to teach you a few things real quick. Just in this little short conversation, I want to help and try not to jump all over the place. But why is black leadership always comes from the pulpit? The Reverend Jesse Jackson, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, all the way down, the Stokely Carmichaels, all the way down. Even today, as they call for a boycott, they call for boycotts of some stores. It's a preacher down in Georgia that's calling for that. Why is the preachers the ones that are calling for that? Well, in this country, us blacks, we never had big money. I'm gonna tell you what we didn't have. We didn't have any big money. We didn't have any big business. We didn't have big government, big insurance, big anything. As you remember, there's certain things that really don't have to stay, but if you remember, they didn't want us to learn how to read and write. Why? Because they knew if we could read or write, that we would achieve, we'd accomplish, and we would grow. So we don't want to be there. So we didn't have that. So what we were allowed to have was the church, because these people were supposed to be Christians, so they couldn't knock us having the Christian church, So we got the Christian church, and so brothers was allowed to be, not women, most I said brothers. Brothers were allowed to be preachers, all right? And even though we had to preach, we had to have a white person in, and I can show you pictures of some of my other lectures, we had to have white people in the pulpits, in the church with us, so we wouldn't, get together and plan and do anything. But black preachers became our leadership. They became our heads, because these were the only, not only that, if a black man wanted to be of any prestige or wanted to be of any, what's the word I'm looking for, have any clout or any juice, he had to be a preacher, because that was the only role that was allowed us at the time. So I definitely clearly understand why Dr. King was a reverend. The person that led the civil rights movement was a reverend. He wasn't a banker. He wasn't a rich black guy. He was a reverend. Why? Because from the pulpit, we could teach. From the pulpit, we could uplift. And even to this day, our pastors and preachers are considered the leaders in our community. When something goes wrong and we want to protest, we go try to find a big church and a big preacher to go stand in front and yell and confront the system on our behalf. And this is why the black man and the preachers and the pastors are in the leadership. I learned that really fast, but that's also the reason why we have so darn many small churches, so darn many storefront churches. Why? Because this pastor, he's got his congregation of 20 that he's leading. This guy's got his 20. Bishop over here's got 40. This guy's got 20. Well, they can just merge that and put in one leadership system. But we can't do that. Why? Because nobody wants to lose their prestigious leadership position. They want to go on and be Reverend Smith. Why I know? Because I pastored the church for 8 years. That was another one of the things I've done. I've done a lot. Studied and went through the leadership and I even went as far as to study under Jerry Falwell, who at that time was one of the lead evangelists in the country, started Liberty University. Why did I study under Jerry Falwell? Because I wanted to be, because his program was better? No, I knew that if the system saw me, with Reverend Jerry Falwell, then my teachings would be accepted, and it would smooth out my road a little bit. Nobody would question my credentials, because I have pictures of me with Mr. Falwell, with the Reverend Falwell, and different things. So that would cut some of the non-believers out. It would open a few doors, not because of who I was, but because he studied under Reverend Falwell, so he did something in the Falwell situation. So we're going to give him a boost. And trust me, a lot of black people have done this, because you've got to get bona fide some kind of way. You've got to get bona fide some kind of way. And I would learn during my pastoring days that people were hard to teach and hard to convince of anything. I would take my family out. I was a member of a ministry that was called a gleaning ministry, and I would go, and the farmers would leave corn and stuff in the field, and I'd take my wife out there. She was on oxygen, and my son's out there in my truck, and we'd pick corn and pick all kinds of things, and we'd come back to the neighborhood with a truck full of stuff. And I had a hard time giving it away. Black people thought we was crazy. What's wrong with the potatoes? What's wrong with this? The lack of trust that black people have for each other is amazing to me, because it was learned. It's something that was taught. You listen to propaganda about yourself and you're doing a certain thing, and then you can't understand why that certain thing is being done to you. Same propaganda that's got them going is shutting you down from doing what it is that you are trying to do. So again, I want to make a statement that people can, for my people in the future. What was Granddaddy about? What was my great granddaddy about? Your great granddaddy was about trying to teach, trying my best to share what I know, to uplift. Again, I'm 64 years old now. I'm retired. I've went through the system. I've bucked the system. I've been beat by the system. I've been set back by the system, and I've learned to work the system. I've learned to learn what is acceptable, what doors I can push open, what doors are never going to be open, and like that. So,
all right, that's going to conclude our bus ride for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I sure enjoyed having you with me. Talked about going the bus ride, how the bus influenced my life, the bus trip to Hampton. But what you didn't realize is that we were taking you on a bus ride with us at the same time. We started our bus ride up in Williamsburg with Sister Connie Matthews. Gave us a beautiful tour of what was going on up there. We moved down from there. I think we went back to Fort Monroe and we dealt with them. We also started, I think, in Fort Monroe and in Hampton. So you've been on the bus with me. We drove the bus there, then we left there, and the bus went over to Hampton University, and we shot over there and showed you some things that was going on over there, and Sister Mary Peak and all kinds of things. So I've enjoyed having you on the bus ride with us today. Here's the thing I want you to understand about the bus. When I talked earlier about in the intro about from the front of the bus to the back of the bus, be smarter than the bus and be smarter than the mentality. That's all I'm saying here. We as black people have always been doing our thing, and you'll be able to keep doing your thing. We don't have to be mad, we don't have to be discouraged, because guess what? We're not going anywhere, So my point on the bus is this. It doesn't make no difference whether you're in the front of the bus or the back of the bus. Just make sure when the bus moves, you're on the bus. Just make sure you're on the bus. And that's what has carried me through my life. And I want to thank Sister Connie. I want to thank, we want to also thank people at Fort Monroe for letting us come in there and shoot and do our thing. People at Williamsburg let us do our thing. So we just want to say thank you to everybody. I want to say special thanks to my producer, Leon Lovelace, Brantley, for putting this together for us. We want to thank him. Funhouse Productions, you guys look them up. Me and my wife, we can find us on YouTube. Follow us on YouTube, Old Folks Traveling, and we'll be going to all the spots. We've been down to Florida. We've been everywhere. The Harry Tubman Museums. We're still doing our thing on Old Folks Traveling. So I want to thanks again. I hope you enjoyed the documentary.